Hello, my name is John Fitzgerald Gonzalez, and I would like to invite you to check out my story, The System. I am dedicating this project to my beloved father, Manolo Gonzalez, that passed away in 1991. He was my heart and soul for everything that I would be doing to be able to accomplish and be able to move on to bigger and better things. My father was a very strict and old-fashioned man that was raised in a very brutal manner, and he also raised me in that same way. I elaborate on in my story exactly what the brutalness is all about, but I had a very hard childhood that dealt with a lot of corporal punishment and a lot of things that most parents would not do to their children, taking it as they are doing wrong and they need to be punished for something that they're doing. What this did to me was it basically traumatized ultimately my learning to be able to, in my school years, learn as teachers were teaching me in class. I would not be retaining any information while in school. I elaborate more in my story where I was also born left-handed, and my father broke me of being left-handed to being right-handed. And ultimately, it was a very frustrating time in my life where things would not make sense on why it was that I was not learning in school as I should, and ultimately I would be getting in trouble. Looking back at everything today, I would imagine that I definitely must have been positive for ADHD, a very hyper child, and getting into trouble no matter what I would do. Ultimately, I went throughout my life in that same type of situation, leading up to the age of 14 years old, where I started to experiment with drugs and alcohol to try to escape from all of the madness and chaos taking place at home, trying to run away from a very brutal childhood. And ultimately, at the age of 16, my father tried making up for a lot of those years that he realized that he had put me through a lot. And he was an owner, a used car dealership owner. Basically helped me to get my very first car at the age of 16 years old. And from the age of 16, clear across to about 3 months before I became 17 years old, I had went through 45 high-speed automobile accidents where the vehicle after the accident looked like an accordion. I should have never survived any of the accidents, and because of the mercy that God has always had in my life, I am alive today. There was a chain of events that took place that I elaborate on in my story, where my father had given me an opportunity to choose whether or not to go into the military or not. I had always admired the Marines from childhood, and I always seen them as the best in all the armed forces. And I basically answered my father and told him, yes, I would love to be able to become a Marine. When my father took me to the recruiter's office, the recruiter had actually tested me, which is the same test that everyone has to take, which is the mandatory entry exam, and I had failed it completely that day. He asked me to continue to come back, as I did, for a month and a half. After a month and a half, I was still missing 95% of the test. At that moment in time, he directed my father to bring me back in a year because he told us that I would not be able to pass the test. And ultimately, I left, and that day my father had a very short conversation with the recruiter. I was outside of the room when they did so, and the next thing I knew, approximately 3 months later, I was on a bus headed to the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego to become a Marine. I never took the test. My father and the recruiter were able to get me in, and I elaborate in my story exactly how that took place. To me, I really lost a lot of respect for the Marine Corps because of what that recruiter had done. I stayed in to continue to make my father proud of me, which was the reason why I even stayed in after the fact. And I just continued to do the very best that I could with the circumstances around me. And as certain challenges basically became something that I needed to get handled for my family, I did indeed put my family first before the Marine Corps on several occasions legally. And that is also something that I elaborate on in my story on. And I really feel that my story is a story that is showing what one person, myself, did in a very huge institution, which the Marine Corps is, for the love of his family, going against the impossible and accomplishing what I had set out to do. I would invite you to check out the story, and I'm sure that once you get through seeing everything that is in there, as my whole story is nonfiction from beginning to end, you'll realize everything that went on in my life from my childhood clear across to the moment I came out of the military, and even a little extra after I came out and experienced the loss of my father, which even up to today, I dearly miss him and wish he was here with me. I would like to invite each and every one of you to check out my story, The System, and I am sure that you will definitely get a lot out of it. It's focused on family, achievements for family, and it really shows how powerful the love for family is on what I did for my family, going against the impossible, things that most people would have not imagined could have been accomplished or done, I did for the love of my family. I want to thank you for this time, and I want to wish you all a very, very great evening. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.